Hi, I'm Dee, and I'm a shadow artist. Or at least I used to be a true shadow artist, and now I'm finally starting to kind of dip my toes into the public eye, you could say, by documenting this process and my artistic endeavors in video format. So, welcome to my Artist's Way journey. This is week one and all my rants, thoughts, and feelings that kind of came up with it. If you're here from any of my other videos that aren't related to this series, you probably found me because of my knitting content, which is what most of the channel is about. Mostly, I'm here on the internet to share my crafty inclinations and creative endeavors, but this episode is going to be a little bit more mental health focused and admittedly ranty. But for me, my creativity and my mental health go hand in hand. You've been warned. Sometimes I talk about this stuff. I called myself a shadow artist. According to Julia Cameron, who's the author of The Artist's Way, a shadow artist is someone who is too intimidated or too low in self-worth to allow themselves to call themselves an artist. These people are often found shadowing an artistic life instead of actually living it themselves. The Artist's Way, let me grab my copy, is basically a self-help book. Feel about that how you might. It was published in 1992, which, if you think about it, is pre-mainstream internet, pre-social media, so some things have definitely changed. But basically, it walks you through a 12-week process of recovering your inner creative. In this first video of what I hope will be a series about this process, I'm going to set the stage a little bit with where I'm at mentally right now. I'll explain my modified rules for the challenge because I'm not quite following exactly how Julia Cameron outlines it in this book. I'll talk about my takeaways from week one, and finally, I'll share a couple of the homework assignments that I did for week one. So, about me. Although I've always considered myself a creative person, and probably anyone who's ever met me, that'd be like one of the first things that they'd say. It's like, oh yeah, she's artsy, creative, that's kind of her thing. I know for a fact that at least I don't take my art seriously or ever feel like it could be a real defining feature of my identity as a whole. I make art, but I don't feel like I'm an artist. Therefore, shadow artist. I feel like I've spent my entire 31 years on this earth kind of hobby hopping and dramatically career shifting, all kind of within the creative realm. I've experimented with everything from painting to dance to van building, architecture, sewing, graphic design, music, event planning, acting, knitting, and even more. Name a crafty thing, and I'm at least interested in it, even if I haven't tried it myself. Notably, I have been a longtime lurker and admirer of the video making world, and until recently I'd been too scared to kind of actually try it for myself and actually post a video. So why not get super vulnerable and just spill my heart out while I'm new at this process? While I only have a few subscribers, now's a better time than any. Which, speaking of now, I am choosing now to start this journey with the Artist's Way again, because I really am at a crossroads in my life in general. While I have some semblance of free time and a flexible schedule, I figured it's as good a time as any to start the Artist's Way again, so I can hopefully get some more clarity about what I want in my creative life and what I want my life to look like moving forward. I consider myself a shadow artist because I've never truly allowed myself to dream that any of my creative hobbies could be anything more than hobbies or could become a viable part of my life path and my identity as a whole. I can't be the only person who grew up in a high pressure school system where there was an underlying kind of opinion and assumption that becoming a professional artist was an impossibility. Art is just something meant for hobbies or casual dabbling, not as a real job. I don't think any of my mentors really meant me harm when they advised me that I should study something more practical in university, but it felt like it would be wasting tuition if I was to study something like art or to get a creative degree that would have no guaranteed financial stability. But like, is anything guaranteed anyway? To quote The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron says, shadow artists often choose shadow careers, those close to the desired art, even parallel to it, but not the art itself. For me, that was architecture. But where did that land me? Almost 10 years after finishing university, I'm a burnt out fledgling architectural designer who worked for a few years before having an identity crisis, and I quit everything when the pandemic started. And since then, I've been kind of chaotically, creatively employed and unemployed with mixed results. But let's back up. I want to do the Artist's Way again. I say again because I have started and failed to do this, I think, at least 3 times. Partially because my own mental health issues aside, this is a notoriously difficult book and course to get through. I already have attention span issues, and it is definitely some pretty deep reading, but it also is really hard to deep dive on yourself when you're not doing good. And I'm not doing good. And I tend to quit when things get hard. As I've kind of hinted at, I've spent my adult life in kind of these really distinct eras that are usually defined by the jobs I have or the people I'm dating or where I'm living. But all of it has landed me here in my early 30s, basically not knowing who I am or what I've learned from all of it. And I have a bunch of unrealized ideas and dreams that I'm simultaneously afraid to start for fear of failure, but also terrified that I'm never going to have the time and never get the chance to try, and that I'm always going to live in regret for that. I have this feeling like some of these ideas are expiring, that I could somehow go my entire life without acting on things like this, to the point that I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's normal. Maybe that's just how life works. Maybe everyone kind of lets some of their dreams expire and you move on to other things. Maybe that's how everyone feels, but they just suck it up better than I do. It always baffles me how it is that some other people are able to tolerate their kind of real jobs and the more prescribed paths. You do the whole university, work, marry, buy a house, have kids, all of that stuff, which, like, to be fair, is a little bit less common amongst my generation and younger people now. So you don't get such crazy looks for not following that. But maybe it's somehow just ingrained in me. Somehow I should be further than I am right now. And I have this guilt that maybe I've wasted my time so far and I'm no nearer to kind of understanding my purpose. If purpose is even a thing. Maybe there is no purpose after all, and we're just kind of this blip in the universe. But I kind of hate that idea too. That's super scary to think about, that none of it matters. Despite every type of positive talk and affirmations imaginable, I genuinely deep down believe that I'm not good enough. The fact is, I am a constant sufferer of imposter syndrome and really crappy self-worth issues. I feel like I'm only worth what I'm able to offer to other people, and friendship and belonging often feels very transactional for me, which is a really crappy assumption to have about myself. The current phase I'm in is especially confusing because I don't really have control over how long it will last. I am currently deep in the void of the unknown of the process of waiting for my permanent residency. I am from the Seattle area in the USA, but I've been living abroad, kind of away from all that chaos, for a number of reasons, not just the obvious, for the last almost 3 years. I am trying to officially live here in Canada, Toronto specifically. I've been hanging out here on visitor status since last summer, and I'm waiting for all the official paperwork to go through. It takes forever to get processed and approved here, and until I have that, I can't legally get a job, have access to healthcare, all kinds of things. I can't even get into job training things that would help me become a better eventual employee in Canada. So that's annoying. I'm sure there are more than just a few Americans right now who are kind of Googling like how to move to Canada and trying to figure out the logistics and how easy that is. I'm here to tell you it is more complicated than you think. And I don't know that I wish this kind of limbo on anybody else. I could, in theory, get my approval tomorrow, or it might still be 6 months away, a year away. I don't know. Not knowing how long I have to kind of sit with myself and this feeling of stuckness, layered in with those feelings of guilt and that I'm not financially supporting my household and that I'm not applying for enough jobs. But even if a job was to want to talk to me, they're not allowed to hire me because I don't have a work permit. And for the most part, any job I apply to, nobody responds anyway, or I just get ghosted. So it's basically just a feeling of rejection and stuckness all the time in all these different sorts of things. It sucks. Am I complaining enough yet? It's really rough not to have a consistent income in a world that's on the brink of probably another economy crash. And I'm at the starting line of building my forever life with my partner. I really resent that the reality of life is that if you want to live in kind of an urban environment and have really any creature comforts, life is just really freaking expensive. I would really love to own property someday. That's more than a couple hundred square feet. Square feet? I'd love to have a yard and a garden and space to like grow a family. But you basically have to be dual income and both of you have to be giving into the corporate system and work real jobs in order to be able to afford that. I don't think that's unique to Toronto. That's just any big city, at least in North America. To quote Julia again, for many families, a career in the arts exists outside of their social and economic reality. Art won't pay the electric bill. This kind of acknowledges that practical mindset that contributed to people like me becoming shadow artists in the first place. And obviously, it's really been weighing on me lately. I'm kind of sad all the time. I'm in mourning for bits and pieces of my life that I've left behind, pieces of previous eras, and kind of feeling homesickness for places, times, and people that just aren't really a part of my day-to-day anymore. That's what you get for making big changes in life. At the same time, I'm really sad about this kind of constant feeling of hopelessness that I'm never going to find my place in the world, which I guess also, if you're listening to this and you know me in real life, know that I'm masking most of the time. I've spent my whole life learning how to hide how much of a bummer I think I actually am inside. Even now, while I'm filming this, My instinct is to smile for the camera. Why do I do that? And even as I promise to you that I'm here being real and honest, and being myself, I honestly actually look like this most of the time. So I'm not even sure that this slightly cleaner and more made up version of me is being fully honest with you either. Maybe I feel like this is somehow more palatable for the internet to sympathize with rather than this one. Feeling unattractive in itself isn't the issue. Besides that, I'm going through kind of these grander self-worth issues. But it's still rough to look in the mirror and see this kind of disheveled, unshowered mess who's been anxiously picking her skin. My default setting is to kind of want to hide from everybody these days, which doesn't help me make new friends. And I know that putting myself out there would probably help a lot in my recovery. Anyway, the whole point of all this is to kind of let you know how I'm feeling and to document my journey where I'm starting. Anyway, with the artist way, I always quit after like week 3 or 4 if I even get that far, because ironically, I immediately feel failure that I'm not doing the process right. There are a million podcasts, videos, summaries, other resources all over the internet and on YouTube itself. They would have a lot more details about how the program is supposed to actually work and probably detailed breakdowns of, oh, this is everything covered in this chapter. So I'll leave it at that for now. I can leave some resources in the description. Julia Cameron has really set guidelines that she says are essential in order to actually get the most out of this process. And as I said before, as soon as something gets hard, I tend to quit rather than let myself really push through it. It's about recovering and being kind to yourself, but I'm immediately really rough with myself about not being able to follow through with all the endless rules and the kind of structure of it. However, done is better than perfect. Julia says herself, progress, not perfection, is what we should be asking of ourselves. So this time around, I'm adapting the formula to fit my brain and my energy. So here's how I'm doing it. First off, I am listening to the book rather than reading it, because reading, yes, the act of turning pages and looking at them with my eyeballs, this has become a deterrent for me. I got the audiobook. I know for myself, I am many times more likely to actually get through the content if I can listen to it while I'm doing something else. Multitasking is great for me and reading. I showed you my physical copy. I bought this in 2020 and it has somehow survived several international moves, even though it definitely does not spark joy to look at an unfinished project. But it's here, just in case, and pretty much just so I can reference the homework parts easier or grab quotes for videos. Another thing I'm doing is I'm listening to friendly podcast recaps and discussions of each chapter. This is helpful for me to review the meat of the topics and feel a little bit like I've heard some other perspectives. It's nice to understand a little bit more of the commentary, kind of like a discussion that I'm not actually in, but it's nice to hear other perspectives. All right, rule number 2 that I'm changing. I am keeping the artist date. Per the book, this is meant to be one purposeful excursion a week to feed my inner creative, but the part of the rule that I'm changing is that I am not going to follow the go alone rule that Julia Cameron prescribes. I am allowing myself to go with somebody if it helps. It turns out that making plans with someone else makes it easier to follow through with them, rather than the alternative, which is kind of loosely planning to go somewhere when it's convenient for me and then I get busy and then it just doesn't happen. Also, the push of documenting something of it will help me for accountability. So for this week 1, this time around, I've decided to count this overnight trip we took to a different city in Ontario. During that trip, we visited friends, explored a vibrant market, tried some really good food, and we had lots of good discussions on the long car ride to kind of reflect on the week and to start this journey. Bonus, I was also working on a big, exciting knitting project. I'll take that as a win. That counts as my artist date for week 1. Speaking of reflection, rule 3. Instead of morning pages, which are Julia Cameron's pride and joy of this process, where you're supposed to sit down and journal every single morning and handwrite 3 whole pages of stream of conscious, I am going to work purposeful reflection into my morning in other ways that work better for me and my attention span. In past attempts, I'd usually be really good at it for maybe the first week, but then it accumulates where you miss one day or then miss another one, or you only write 1 page. But all of it kind of added up to, even while I was doing something for it, it definitely felt like I was failing even before I was getting into the deep benefits of the program. So I don't want to hold myself to a standard that's going to make me feel like I'm failing. In my case, this time around, I'm going to combine the morning reflection with my craft of choice, which is knitting. My morning pages are going to be more like morning stitches. Huh, catchy. Where I'll make some satisfying progress on my projects without outside distraction, and I'm going to see what my brain wants to spiral about. I typically put on an audiobook, podcast, YouTube video, something while I'm knitting, just because I usually hate having to listen to my own inner monologue. but we're going to give that voice some purposeful time every morning, just a moment in the spotlight every day, and we're going to see what she has to say. Which leads me to rule number 4. Instead of a physical journal, I'm going to be dumping all my revelations into a Google Doc. Removing the barrier of having to actually carry a physical journal around or to find a tolerable pen, or you always get hand cramps. You always get hand cramps when you write too much. Now, if I have an idea, whether it's in the morning or like any other time in the day, I can easily hop on the document either on my laptop or on my phone if that's what's with me. And bonus, this makes it easy to kind of have material to work through and search through when I'm going to be making my video recaps. So that's great. And finally, rule 5. Julia has this rule about keeping the morning pages, or in my case, morning stitches and thoughts, secret, even from yourself, until at least the end of the program, if you ever even get to look at them at all. That strategy doesn't really help me. I definitely need some kind of accountability in order to get things done. Period. Somehow, oversharing my rambling and thoughts like I'm doing right now will help me to actually get it done and to actually document the feelings I'm having throughout this course. So, whatever relevant thoughts I have during the week, we're going to end up talking to the camera about it. On to the next segment of this video, which is week 1. Week 1 of the Artist's Way asks us to gain awareness of where we are as a shadow artist. It prompts us to think about what our alternate lives would be like and kind of what caused our stuckness feelings to begin with, and to really take notice of where we are judging ourselves. I really relate to the commentary on judging ourselves because I am my own worst critic. I think we all probably are to ourselves. I'm constantly knocking down my own ideas before they even get a chance to bud. Basically, I worry that it's going to be a waste of time, whatever I make, and or that people will think that I'm full of myself. So I'm trying to come to terms with let people think whatever they're going to think. And also, I think I would judge myself later for sitting around for months and months in a slump rather than just trying the thing. Would I ever judge somebody else for trying the thing? Absolutely not. I admire them for trying the thing. Worst case, I might see them trying the thing and I get bitter about it. I think about how I could do that too, or I could do it better. And then I just find myself kind of mad at somebody else for having the audacity to put themselves out there, which is unfair. If I want that for myself, why shouldn't anybody else have it? Per Julia Cameron again, all too often, it is audacity and not talent that moves an artist to center stage. I really don't like that version of myself that even comes close to judging other people for their bravery. Even just in making this video, I'm coming up against one of the other concepts in this chapter, which are terms called blurts and censors. These are the things that our subconscious scream out at us anytime we dare to kind of step outside of our comfort zones. For me, these are what they sound like. I'm not good enough. This will take too long. And for what? My time would be better spent doing something for money. No one's gonna watch this video anyway. I don't think I'm pretty enough for internet success. My art just isn't that interesting to most people. My hobbies are a waste of time and money, and I can't afford to waste any of those resources right now. But whoa, do you hear all that? Do I really want to be taking such a negative angle of myself right now from the start? Listen, yes, because I'd rather be real with myself now, document how my brain is actually working, rather than act like this is some kind of curated, idealistic, routine, instructional shake-up video about how I'm fixing all my life and everything's great and I'm so good at all this. That's just not the fact. If you've watched this far in this video, it's probably so obvious. I'm not okay right now. That's why I'm doing this. You might not like this version of me. I don't like this version of me. That's why. That's why I'm doing this. I am devastatingly anxious and depressed, and I'm exhausted from masking it, so here we go. This is how it is. Anyway, what revelations did I have in week 1? Last week, a new gelato place opened in my neighborhood. After months and months of the space kind of being empty and mysterious of what's going to go in there, is it ever going to happen? Under construction for months. After all of that, I was skeptical of this shop's prospects, if it would ever open at all. Especially because I heard it was going to be a bakery gelato place. It kind of seems like the neighborhood is pretty saturated with that type of thing already. Then, especially as I was beginning this process, I realized that I was projecting my own convictions that fun, creative businesses are impossible to take off these days. Why would somebody risk opening a business like that? I don't think anyone just chooses to open a dessert cafe as some kind of get-rich-quick, super stable income sort of solution, unless it's a situation like you are forced to inherit the family gelato legacy. A business like that opening in this economy, that's somebody's dream. Amongst all the craziness in the world, they've probably been saving up for years and honing their craft all in the hopes of brightening the neighborhood with some sweet treats and a new community space. They're sharing their passions. They're freaking doing the thing. So why not me? If the world has room for another bakery or gelateria or a new pottery studio or coffee shop, why wouldn't there be room for me and my creative ideas, whatever they might be? The world is a better place with every new gelato shop. Every time someone new picks up a pair of knitting needles, every time somebody uploads their first YouTube video. So I'd like to take on more of that kind of attitude. I'm not gaining anything from staying in the shadows just because success might feel impractical. This revelation, which might seem simple, just that the world needs more gelato, it ties in with one of the homework assignments for this week, which was to imagine living alternate lives. The idea from the book is that anyone reading this, there's probably something else that you think would be fun to do, but maybe you've never tried it, or it's maybe felt out of reach. But if you could do anything in the world, what sounds fun? It's kind of funny to share these now because I bet I've written some version of these same things every single time I've gone through this first chapter. But to my credit, I have at least lightly experimented with almost all of them in some form or another. So it's all a little bit familiar, a little bit nostalgic, but also fun to dream. I'm pretty sure the book prompts me to talk about these, at least a couple of them in more detail later. So subscribe, I guess, if you want to see that. But here we go. In no particular order, these are my alternate lives as of Daydreams in April 2025. Homesteading, ideally on a piece of land that has an ancient cottage that I'm renovating, and bonus points if I also am raising sheep. Van life, and basically being a digital nomad adventurer all over the world. Gallery slash cafe slash yarn craft store owner. Ideally all three at once. Flight attendant. Coffee roaster or winemaker. Author. Knitwear and or fashion designer. Straight up actual artist, like paintings in galleries kind of thing. Upholsterer slash furniture upcycler. And finally, barista. For the next assignment, because one of those aforementioned chatty podcasts chose this one as one of their prompts for this first week, the way that they did it made me emotional while I was out walking the dog. I had little kind of tears coming to my eyes, just kind of feeling the feels about it. This homework option asks you to write a letter to the editor in defense of yourself. That hurting, self-conscious, kind of hopeless shadow artist that got you into this course in the first place. Here's my letter. Hey world, I know times are weird right now, but you really gotta give this girl D a break. She's been on the brink of something great, but due to the pressures of financial stability and the constraints of a complicated immigration system, she's been feeling really stuck and like she has no control over the direction of her life. She has been told for years, even often subliminally, that being a creative isn't a worthy career path, that the market is oversaturated already, and that the world doesn't need another starving artist. She's even convinced by that stereotype, that to make art you must otherwise starve, and that's not fair. She has made beautiful things, but has been too afraid to share them because of what people might think. She's afraid that someone might think that she has confidence in herself, that she loves and is proud of what she makes. But listen, her creating isn't hurting anyone. She just wants to share about her craft and life and hopefully find a community in her new home, and maybe eventually in the internet world. She wants to bring people together by being herself and embracing the fact, yes, fact, that she has some talents that are pretty cool and deserve a place at the table. She is not lazy or looking for the easy way out. She is aware of her energy and trying to protect the version of her that has been shut down and stifled in the past. Given time, she will find recovery and peace, and hopefully make the world a better place in the process. Sincerely, future me. So here I am at the end of week 1, feeling obviously like I have a lot of feelings and a lot to work through. That was a lot for one video and just 1 week's worth of reflections. And this is just the beginning of the process. If you're into it, go ahead and subscribe. Hopefully I keep up with this at least every other week, at least somewhat regularly. And hey, if you're here from the future and I somehow ended up in your algorithm, or maybe you're me looking back in a few years, hi, it's so good to see you. Isn't this crazy that this is where I started? And yeah, especially if you are here right now watching this because you found a different week in the process first. Oh my God, comment below. Am I doing it? Am I keeping up with the process? And finally, if you know me in real life, please try to help me not feel weird about this. If you've watched this far, you can see that I'm really going through it right now. So don't judge me. Or if you do, just keep it to yourself. I judge myself plenty already. All right, I think that's it for this week. Hopefully I'll be back with some knitting content next. Definitely more updates on my artist's way journey. So I will see you next week. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.